Rudy Giuliani has been suspended from practicing law in the state of New York. Sadly, he is still coloring his own hair. So downside to this, but the New York Supreme Court Appellate Division's Grievance Committee filed a summary of all the disciplinary proceedings outlining multiple, quote, uncontroverted instances of professional misconduct. I know what you're thinking, a little late. Anyway, let's go to that. They wrote, we conclude there is uncontroverted evidence that respondent communicated demonstrably false and misleading statements to courts, lawmakers, and the public at large in his capacity as lawyer for former President Donald J. Trump and the Trump campaign in connection with Trump's failed effort at a re-election in 2020. They continue, these false statements were made to improperly bolster the narratives that due to widespread voter fraud, victory in the 2020 United States presidential election was stolen from his client. We conclude that respondents' conduct immediately threatens the public interest and warrants interim suspension from the practice of law pending further proceedings before the Attorney Grievance Committee. So this is temporary, just so everyone knows. He might be practicing law once again. Who knows? Trump 2024. You never. There are more rings of hell. But overall, thoughts on this. Some kind of consequences, a little bit of consequences, given that there have been so few coming out of the misinformation of the 2020 election.
Based on some of the comments that he made where he was, America isn't America anymore. This is countries controlled by the Democrat Party. Essentially, America is not America anymore because, white men now have to face consequences for things that they do. And what's so interesting, Rudy Giuliani is just a really interesting character because, you look at him now and he just seems like a complete crazy person. Every time you see a picture of him or he's in the news, he's making some like crazy face like this. The leaking of the brain juice from the side of his head, and just the constant lying and just ridiculous partisan pandering that he's done. But he actually has had an extremely successful career. Rudy Giuliani practically ended Cosa Nostra. I mean, the Italian mafia is still around, but nothing like they were, and that's pretty much because of him. And so, like, while he's easy to make fun of, like we've really watched a man deteriorate over time. And I don't feel sorry for him. I'm not saying it like that. It's just interesting to see like what power and spotlight and status can do to people over time, to the point where he's so eroded that he feels sorry for himself as if he's been wronged in this situation. And it's just ridiculous, so.
Very beautifully said. And to piggyback off of, the point about Rudy effectively prosecuting the mob into oblivion, that was his reputation. I got rid of the mob in New York. He becomes mayor, and then he gets all the credit for quote unquote cleaning up New York City, right? That's Rudy's reputation for having taken New York out of the dark days of the 70s and 80s. And then of course, 9/11 happens and he's America's mayor. And this guy, his reputation was just sky high. And to see him now just be, brought low to this point of pandering to the likes of Donald J. Trump, it's quite sad to see. But I will say this, Eric Adams is about to become the next mayor of New York City. And his campaign was very Rudy Giuliani-esque. All he did was sprinkle in some very strategic sort of identity politics of I'm black, but I'm of the professional class. And he's aligned himself with the business interests, which are Wall Street and the real estate people in New York, who are the most powerful interests in all of New York City. That's Rudy Giuliani legacy, right? Like that's what Rudy did. He cozied up to all the business interests and had this sort of tough on crime sheen to him. And that's the legacy that he leaves in New York and is still carrying on. So it's kind of crazy to see him become such an oafish clown in the public sphere.
I gotta disagree. I just want to say that Giuliani's always been trash, trash. And now his outward appearance and the way he speaks matches his disgusting black little heart and all of his horrible policies, locking up mentally ill people to quote unquote get them off the streets, right? And locking up people for trying to, clean a windshield here and there, and all his BS broken windows policies that maybe he cleaned up New York, but he also imprisoned a lot of innocent people. So I'm just go ahead and say that. I was in New York on 9/11. Rudy Giuliani did nothing.
Facts.
Just came out and was a bloodthirsty bigot like every other leader that we had. And so I don't know, I'm like so done with him. But I will say, let him speak. Let's hear what he has to say and his defense of himself now that he has been not completely disbarred, but put on notice, leave. Here he is with on Newsmax talking about this accusation that he has basically given false and misleading statements that could be dangerous. Take a look.
They are declaring right now that you are a threat. At this moment, you are an immediate threat to the public interest. You, Rudy Giuliani, just sitting there because you're not unifying behind Joe Biden. The country's being torn apart. And that's what they're citing.
Yeah,
the country is being torn apart because of cable news or whatever.
Well, I made all those statements, correct? Not a single one of them led to a protest, a riot, an incident, and anything.
Yeah, not a single one led to a protest, a riot, an incident, or anything. Oh, except for, what about this one?
Let's have trial by combat.
Oh, we remember what happened next. Yes, hundreds of people storming the Capitol building. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that those things were linked. You asking for a trial by combat. Anyway, I'm tired of making this argument. When was Giuliani good? Maybe Cosa Nostra, but guys, I'm Italian, man. I'm gonna say, I feel like the mafia wouldn't have been as cold-hearted in the Oval Office as the Trump administration.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.